All right, everyone, it's Saturday afternoon. I'm back at my teaching studio in Northern Kentucky. Today we're going to talk about playing some blues rhythm guitar. I find a lot of times when people come in for lessons that they don't have a solid foundation in understanding how to play blues rhythm guitar, and without that, they often don't realize that a large percentage of rock songs are based on traditional blues forms. So the most common form in blues is a 12-bar blues, which actually is 12 measures. Whenever somebody says 12-bar blues, what they're saying is the 12-measure blues. So today, we're going to explore how to play the rhythm guitar part for a 12-bar blues in the key of A. So I'm just going to give you a very quick run through on how to play the chords, the notes that are in the chords, how to build them, and then we're going to go through very quickly how to build up the rhythm part on your guitar. We'll start with the roots, then we'll play some power chords, we'll play some regular, what we call regular chords, which are 3 and 4 note chords, then we might play some shuffle patterns and a few ornamental notes. One thing, I created a backing track. It's available on my YouTube channel. It's called the Ultimate Guitars Backing Track in A. Ultimate Blues Backing Track in A. Level up your guitar playing. No rhythm guitar at 72 beats per minute. I might change that name. That might be pretty hard to find. I'll definitely link it below. But the backing track doesn't have any rhythm guitar part. It's just bass and drums. It really gives you an opportunity to work out your rhythm guitar skills. So that said, let's get into it. A lot of times, whenever people talk about a song being in the key of A, I can remember I didn't really understand what that meant. I heard people talk about keys. I thought, I didn't know. I was like, I'm not sure. And I remember I've had some really terrible guitar teachers. And I remember I asked my guitar teacher, what's it mean when a song's in the key of A? I was probably about 10 or 11. And he said, well, that means that the first chord in the song is A and the last chord in the song is A. And my 10 or 11 brain said, keys, not very important. Well, it ends up that's not true. The keys are very important. And whenever you're playing in a particular key, if somebody says this song is in the key of A, what they're really saying is they're saying that the chords in the song and the melody, the majority of it, is created by using notes that would be in an A major scale. So I've done a lot of theory-heavy lessons, and I'm happy to do a whole bunch of more theory-heavy lessons. But today, I really want to get us into playing rhythm guitar, so I'm just going to give a very quick overview on how to do this. So the thing that we need to know we need to know two things in order to figure out what notes are in the key of A. And the two things that we need to know is we need to know the formula for spelling a major scale. And the formula for a major scale, I always joke about this, but it's no joke, it's really true. Knowing the formula for a major scale, it would be like if you signed up for a race, and a running race, and you didn't know how far you were going to run. So if you signed up for a race and it was 1 mile, and you thought it was going to be a marathon, you didn't want to start out too fast, the race would be over before you even really got started. If you signed up for a race and it was a marathon and you were running at a 1 mile pace, you would get burned out very quickly. So that's understanding the intervals of a running race. But for us, what we need to do is we need to know the formula for a major scale. And so the formula for a major scale is whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. I have this on my, what I call my music theory toolkit. And my music theory toolkit, I have it on my Patreon site. I might put it up. There's another place too I might put it up. If somebody wants to buy a copy of it, send me a message on YouTube or an email. People that come in for lessons, if you take private lessons, this is part of the packet of materials that I supply you with. So here's the formula: whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Of course, you can just Google search it and find it. The next thing that you have to have in order to be able to calculate the notes in the scale is you have to have a knowledge of the musical alphabet. And so the musical alphabet is the letters A through G, and every letter has a sharp and a flat, with the exception of E and F and B and C. I've talked about this a lot in my other videos. If you want to learn more about Pythagoras and sharps and flats, go back and watch my other videos. There's a really long one called Understanding Musical Intervals and what the devil's interval tells you, something like that. I talk about that stuff really at length. So here we're going to go A, and each one of these blocks is a half step. So we're going to go A, and it's a whole step. So we go 1, 2. The next letter is B. Then we go another whole step, 1, 2. The next letter is going to be C sharp. There's a rule that whenever you're spelling scales that you have to go in alphabetical order. So since we just went to B, we get to this block, we have to choose between C sharp and D flat, but C is in alphabetical order. So it's C sharp, then we go a half step, that's D. From D we go a whole step, that gets us to E. We go another whole step. We just did E, so when we get here we have to choose between F sharp and G flat. F sharp is the alphabetical, the note that's alphabetical. Then we go another whole step, and we get to G sharp, and then we go a half step, and we're back to A. And there's some rules whenever you spell your scales. It's called the series of checks and balances. That's what we called it at university. And you can see the first and last note of the scale has to be same. Every letter has to be used in a scale. This is when you're writing a 7-note scale. So when they say every letter, it means there'll be a letter A, a letter B, a letter C, a letter D, E, F, and G. One of each letter in every scale. So if you're writing a scale and you're leaving out one of those letters, you're doing it wrong. So we know our scale. We've already figured that out. And I have it typed up over here. And here it is. A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. I just figured it out. That's how I figured it out. So the next thing we're going to do, because blues uses what's called a 1-4-5 chord progression. And other styles of music use chord progressions with different numbers. It doesn't, but blues music, traditionally, they take the first note of the scale, the fourth note of the scale, and the fifth note of the scale, and they build chords by combining other letters to create harmonies with the note that I just mentioned. So the first note that we get is we get the letter A. That's the first note of the scale. And then, following the rules of tertiary harmony, I've covered this in my other videos, that means we're going to take 3 letters. So we go A, B, C. So the next letter is going to be C sharp, because there's no C in this scale, there's a C sharp. Then from C sharp, we're going to go 3 letters. C sharp, D, E. So there is an E. So the A chord is the notes A, C sharp, and E. Then we're going to go to the fourth note of the scale. The fourth note of the scale, it's a D. So we start on D. Counting D, we count 3 letters. D, E, F. Then we look at our scale. There's an F sharp, but there's no F, so we're going to use the F sharp. It's going to be D and F sharp. Then we start on F sharp, we count 3 letters. F sharp, G, A. So there is an A. So it's D, F sharp, and A is the D scale, the D chord, sorry. And then the third chord we're going to use is going to be built on the 5th scale degree. The 5th scale degree is E. So we're going to count 3 letters again. We go E, F, G. We look at the scale. There's no G, but there's a G sharp. So it's going to be E, G sharp, and then from G sharp we count 3 letters. G sharp, A, B. And there is a B. So the E chord is going to be E, G sharp, and B. So these three chords give us A major, D major, and E major. Now, if you've ever listened to blues, I'm going to play this. If I played... you can hear that those major chords, they sound pretty happy. There's a lot of songs that are written that use the chords A, D, and E, but not very many of them are blues, because the majority of the artists that were recording blues songs were telling stories about their personal hardships. And musicologists believe that those artists experimented with different types of chords, and that they felt like a chord that's called a dominant seventh chord best captured the way that they felt in their songs. So I have another chart over here. The dominant seventh chord takes a major chord, but it adds a minor seventh, and that creates a chord that has some instability. So that creates a chord that could be a little harsh. And so when we add that fourth note, it's a minor seventh. So if we start with our first letter, which is A, and we count 7, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, that on the A chord, we add just the G. It's going to be 10 half steps. On the D chord, which people often call the 4 chord because it's built on the fourth note of the scale, we start on D and we count 7 half steps, or 7 letters. I'm sorry. Start on D, count 7 letters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7. We're going to go D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So C is the 7th. We're going to add that. And then on E, we're going to start on E. We're going to count 7 letters. E, F, G, A, B, C, D. So we've added to the A chord a G. We've added to the D chord a C, and we've added to the E chord a D. So now let's hear what these sound like. Here's the A chord with the added G note. Here's the D chord with the added C note. So here's the regular D. Here's the D with the added C. It's got that little bit of harshness. The last one's E, so we play, here's the regular E chord. And I can add D, I can either add my finger here, or I can lift up a finger. And these chords, you know, some of the songs that come to mind right away, I mean, there's a number of Stevie Ray Vaughan songs, the Led Zeppelin songs, but Crossroads Blues, which was written by Robert Johnson, one of the founders of blues music, and that song was made very popular by Cream and Eric Clapton. If you can see what I'm doing, so the Crossroads Blues plays the A, and then it adds a G, and you'll notice I lifted my finger up that play the G. I would never play it like this if I was playing it with a band. I'm just doing it like this so you can see, so it's kind of visual that I have A chord, A7 with the G added, A chord. So Crossroads Blues kind of sounds like. D7. So there's sort of an introductory into what the dominant chord sounds like. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to learn how to play a basic 12-bar blues. And this is the part, there's so many songs that are based on this. Rock songs, country songs, popular songs, they're based on the pattern of the 12-bar form. They don't always use the dominant 7th chords. A lot of times country songs or singer-songwriters, they'll just use regular major chords. Sometimes they use minor chords. It really depends on the story that the songwriter is trying to tell. But the 12 measure pattern is very, very popular. Okay, so I've typed up a sheet, and it has the form of your most common 12-bar blues. So you'll notice if I count the measures, I've made 4 per line, and that there's a total of 12. And one of the easiest ways that I have people learn how to play this is I ask them to memorize each line. So each line is typically thought of as a phrase. So the first line is 4 measures long, and you'll notice it only has 1 chord. It's 4 measures of A7. So you would count, each measure has 4 beats. So you would count a total of 16 beats. You would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So you would count 4 measures of A7. Then the second phrase, which is the middle, this is called a system. It's the middle system, and that it's 2 measures of D7 and 2 measures of A7. So we're going to go 2 measures of D and 2 measures of A. Now, the last system, which is the third phrase, it has 1 chord for each measure. So it has E, D7, it's E7, D7, A7, E7. That's the pattern of a basic 12-bar blues. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate, and this is what I ask people to do, is that I ask people to only play the root notes of the chords and play your 12-bar blues pattern. So to do that, what we would do, 1, 2. So I have my metronome going. If you'll notice, the metronome using beat 1 has a different sound than the other 3 beats. So it makes it easy. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now, whenever I play on the guitar, when I play the A chord, the root note of the A chord is string 5 open. This is an A note. We call this the A string. The root note of the D chord is string 4 open. And the root note of the E chord, which is an E, is string 6 open. So the first thing I'm going to do, and a lot of times people say, oh, this seems so simple. This is such an important step in order to get confidence in what the blues sounds like and to hear what we call the harmonic movement. So the harmonic movement is when you can hear the root notes of the chords. So I'm only going to play the A note, the D note, and the E note, and I'm going to follow the pattern of the 12-bar blues. 3, 4, A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Fourth measure, 2, 3. D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Back to A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Down to E, last one phrase, 2, 3. D7, A7, and then on the last measure I have 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a... So I always play a little more on the very last measure, because oftentimes if somebody's singing or if they're playing a solo, sometimes when you're playing a solo, you can be concentrating so hard on the ideas that you're playing that you lose track of exactly where you are in the song. So whenever you hear that at the end of the phrase, that really helps a lot. Now I can play my root notes again, but this time to make it sound a little bluesier, I'm going to use more of a blues rhythm, which is called a shuffle eighth note. So a regular eighth note takes the beat and divides it perfectly into 2 even parts. So a regular eighth note would be like this. I'm gonna count some, 2, 3, 4. It'd be like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So a regular eighth note would be like this. 3. Here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and. Sometimes people call those straight eighth notes. Now, blues uses what's called swinging or shuffling eighth notes. So I'm going to demonstrate this with the blues. The blues eighth notes, actually they're uneven. So the first note is 66% of the beat and the second note is 33% of the beat. And if you wonder why it's usually like this, it's because of tradition. That that I read an article that the musicologist, I think he was from Oxford, but I'm not sure. His name was Alan Lomax, had traveled around the Delta interviewing blues players. And when he interviewed them, he had discovered that they actually were counting the beats wrong, that they would say the names that are associated with the eighth notes, which takes the beat and divide it in two, but they would make the first beat a little bit longer and the second beat a little bit shorter. So he attributed that to an influence of African music. And so they would count them like this. They would go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And so I don't think I started on 1, so I should do that. So they would count them like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And that's still how we count eighth notes. They're a little bit uneven. So now I'm going to play the root notes and I'm going to use the shuffle rhythm. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Third measure. Fourth measure. Change the D. D and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. A. Down to E. D. A. Last measure. One more time. A. 2. Third measure. Fourth measure. D. A. E. D. A. E. Very good. So now I only played the root notes. So I played the A string, the D string, and the E string. So we're going to build this up. We're going to build up the rhythm part. So the next step that we're going to do is we're actually going to play what's called a power chord. So a power chord is the root and the fifth. And if you don't know what this is, I made a video last week on perfect fourths and perfect fifths. So go watch it. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the A string open, string 5, 0, and then I'm going to play a note that's a fifth above that, which will be 5 letters. It's going to be an E note. So I'm going to play string 4, fret 2. And I'm going to play both of these at the same time. That's A5. Then, whenever it goes to D, I'm going to do the same pattern. So I'm going to have D, which is string 4 open, and then I'm going to go to the third string and I'm going to play second fret. Then I'm going to go back to A, so I'll do the same thing, and then I'm going to go to the E5 chord. So I'm going to go an E power chord. So I'm going to play string 6 open, and I'm going to play fret 2, string 5, E5, and then this one's always a little tricky. The next note is D5, and I have to skip over. The D string is going to be string 4 open, so I want to make sure I lift up my finger and skip over and get my finger on string 3, fret 2. So here we go. I'm going to play the power chords. I'm going to start the metronome. 2, ready, A. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. D. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and So we played the root notes of each chord. You should be able to do that from memory with the metronome. Then we played a power chord and we followed our 12-bar blues form. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to play something super cool. It's called the blues shuffle. And so whenever you do the blues shuffle, there's several different kinds, but we're going to start with the easiest one. So the easiest one, we play the fifth. So we play A and E, and then we play the sixth. And I haven't done the video yet for the sixth. It's the next video in my series of intervals. So hopefully I'll have that out in a couple weeks. So I'm going to play the fifth and I'll do it twice. I'll go one and then I'm going to put my third finger down on the fourth fret. And this is F sharp. And if we counted A to F sharp, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, that's the sixth. So you'll frequently see this referred to as the A5, A6 shuffle. I can remember seeing a magazine article where somebody was referring to that, and I didn't know exactly what they were talking about. I wanted to know what they're talking about, but I didn't know. So this is the A5, A6. So it goes A5, and I'm going to hit that twice, A5, and then I'm going to put my third finger on the sixth note. It's an interval of a sixth. So it's F sharp, and then I'm going to go back to E. And this is what it sounds like. It's in a million songs. And so one measure of that is one and then you put your third finger down, two and go back to your first finger, three and then put your third finger down, four and. That's one measure. So I'm going to do that 4 times on the first line. Then I'm going to switch to D. I'm going to do 2 measures of D. Then I'm going to go back to A, 2 measures of A. Then I'm going to come down to E. I'm going to do 1 measure of E, skip up 1 measure of D, 1 measure of A, 1 measure of E. Here we go. One, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3. D, 1. Down to E, 1 and 2 and 3, and up to D, 1 and 2, A, 1 and 2 and 3, and E. Very good. So there we did the A5, A6 shuffle. So the next step we're going to do is the most common blues pattern that I hear. It actually is a 2-measure phrase, and it uses the 7th. So it's the A6, it's the A5, A6, A7 shuffle. Except Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jimmy Page, I hear lots of people doing it, but they add the 7th, so they go A5, A6, A5, A6, A5, A6, A7, A6. And so because of that, you have to have 2 measures to be able to play the whole phrase. And so whenever you play it, you would play it on these 2 measures, and if you want to, you could play it again on these 2 measures. Here's D7, and we have 2 measures of D7, so we could do that same pattern if we started on, we would move our fingers to do it on D, but we would do a 2-measure phrase there, and then here we would do a 2-measure phrase on A, same thing. But when we get down here, each one of these chords only lasts for 4 beats, which is 1 measure. So we wouldn't be able to use a 2-measure phrase if the chord only lasts for 1 measure. So now I'm going to demonstrate the A5, A6, A7. It goes like this. A5, A6, A5, A6, A5, A6, A7, A6. That was it. And that took a total of 8 beats, which is 2 measures. So now I'm going to start the metronome and I'm going to demonstrate it. 3, 4, 1, 2. D. Great job. So fire up your metronome. Get your metronome going. Get the metronome set on 82 beats a minute. So the next thing I'm going to demonstrate is I'm going to demonstrate some basic chords. So I have this A7, D7, and E7. So I'm gonna play one time through, and then I'm gonna show you the bar chords. So here we go. 3, A7. D7. A7. E7. Nice work. So now, once you know how to play the basic shuffle pattern and some of the basic chords, that those things are interchangeable. So whenever you see you can put the basic shuffle pattern in. So let's just say I was going to play. Okay, so now that you know the basic shuffle pattern and some basic chords, you can start to create your own rhythm. It can start to be rhythm part, more fluid with your approach. So you can do a shuffle pattern, and then you can do a chord, or you can do some chords in a shuffle pattern. I'll demonstrate. I could go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and D. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and A7. So there, I just was sort of going by the feel. I didn't have my metronome on, but I was playing a shuffle pattern, then strumming some chords. And so most of the time, professional blues players will use what we call a bar chord. So we'll play A7 at the 5th fret. And I'll put all these chords up on the screen. Here's A7. Here's D9. I'm going to use D9 as a substitute instead of D7. I always joke and say that D9 is a fancy version of D7. And so this is my joke, would be if you had a Toyota Camry, that would be Toyota Camry is just your basic D chord. But if you take your Toyota Camry and you tint the windows, you get a loud stereo, you've turned that into a D7 chord. And then if you get some big wheels and a spoiler, you make it into a D9 chord. So you start with the basic thing, and then you keep adding these extra things on. So here's the D9. That's like your Toyota Camry, but you got tinted windows, big spoiler, and wheels. That's how, it's actually called chord extensions, and that's often how they work. So here we go. I'm going to play A7, D9, and E9. These are my favorite chords. Typically, if somebody else is playing a shuffle pattern, I will accompany them by playing those chords. I always feel like if somebody's already playing a shuffle pattern, that it's not necessary for me to play the shuffle pattern too. They've already covered that. I want to look for something different I can do to contribute. Here we go. 3, 4. Third measure. Fourth measure. D. great work. Get your metronome out, go through and play those chords with your metronome. You should play the root note, the power chord, the basic shuffle, A5, A6, the more fancy shuffle, A5, A6, A7. Open chords, A7, D7, E7, bar chords, A7, D9, E9. You can go through, you're starting to build your vocabulary. It gives you different ways that you can play blues rhythm guitar and be supportive of other people. It also gives you practice on playing 12 measure forms, which are probably the most common pattern in popular music. I'm not saying that the 12 measure form always uses A7, D7, E7. Sometimes they might use minor chords or major chords, but I'm just saying that that 12 measure pattern itself is very popular. So once you get this stuff going, you can go back to my YouTube channel and you can find the backing track. And I'm gonna pull up the backing track and I'm gonna play a little bit of rhythm guitar, and that's gonna take us out. So as always, thanks so much for joining me. I've been so excited. I had a goal of getting 300 subscribers, and I've gotten past 300 subscribers, and that's super fantastic. I'm so thrilled that everybody is checking out my videos, and if you have questions, leave a comment. I try to answer my questions. Right now, even though I have more than 300 subscribers, it's easy for me to answer the questions. There's not many people, not very many people have questions, so I'm happy to do it. So here we go. I'm going to play the backing track, which is called the Ultimate Guitar Blues Backing Track in A. I'll link it. I think I might change the title. It's a little hard to find, but I'll link it in this video. Here we go. All right, I don't know if I said this. I teach guitar lessons in the greater Cincinnati area, northern Kentucky and Cincinnati, and I also do virtual lessons. So if you want help on some of these concepts that we've talked about or specific demonstrations, send me a message and we can schedule some lessons. One thing I always fail to mention is that in lessons, that if people have questions about specific songs that they want to learn, I'm always happy to help with that. That YouTube has such strict copyright rules that it's hard for me to really sort of understand. I don't know how people are doing lessons where they're playing covers of certain people's songs. I've watched a couple of videos, and yeah, I think the way that the people avoid the copyright rules is they actually play the wrong chords. So I've had several students bring in videos they watched on YouTube and they wanted help with them, and they had said the song just doesn't sound right, and I was like, yeah, that's because the person's just not playing the right chords. So like and subscribe. Thanks so much for checking out my channel. I'll see you next week or maybe sooner.